Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I've got another cheap guitar on the bench today. It's a Donner guitar. Got a real good deal on it. Picked this thing up for 50 bucks on Facebook. And it's basically new. So I thought I'd show you what comes with one of these things, what's inside it, and just take a closer look at it. So let's take a look at the guitar itself. Like I said, it's a Les Paul Special style. There are Les Paul Juniors, I believe, that have this body shape, but it has, similar headstock to a Gibson. It's a fully bound headstock, fully bound neck, and it's got binding on the top of the body. The components look just like a kind of a Les Paul Epiphone style. It's got a stub bar tailpiece and an adjustable Gibson style bridge. The thumb wheels, I would say, are the only thing that really stand out to me as being a little bit different on this guitar. The thumb wheels just are not as big as I've seen on an Epiphone. The pickups themselves, they have the adjustable pole pieces on the outsides that are similar to a PAF style pickup. The strap buttons look like they're of decent quality, but they're not exactly like Gibson strap buttons would be. The knobs look a little bit cheaper than even Epiphones that I've seen recently, like the Slash model special that I just reviewed. The switch, I haven't gotten inside that cavity yet, but it does not feel like a really good mechanical switch. The cover here is definitely a little bit cheaper. Some of the plastics feel a little bit cheaper than normal. The nut looks like it was slotted in an awful big hurry. And the tuners. The tuners are sealed tuners. They're not that stamped steel cover style that you'll see on a lot of Epiphones. Even though they're sealed tuners, they have a lot of slop in them. I've already been playing with this guitar, and I would say you could turn the tuners probably an eighth of a turn before they catch in the opposite direction. So if you're trying to go down and you had previously tuned up, it's going to move about an eighth of a turn without catching before it starts going the other way. The neck has a really nice finish on it. I don't know what wood this is, but it's got this dark finish on it, and it's definitely a two-piece neck. There's a scarf joint that runs right about here, so the headstock and the neck itself are actually two different pieces. It's a bolt-on neck, and it's got a Les Paul sort of style plate on it. Not exactly the same though. And the one thing I'll say about the jack plate is a little bit cheaper than I would expect to see on even an Epiphone, and it's not clocked at exactly the same spot. It's a little bit further, like almost more straight up and down than an Epiphone. One thing I noticed about the finish on the guitar, the finish has a definite line going through it right here. I'm assuming that's where two pieces of wood were joined to make this body. I might be able to open up this neck pocket and sort of see inside there, and we can know for sure. Other than that, the finish is pretty nice. I would say the body shape is very similar to a Les Paul. If I had to say anything was different, this horn is not quite as pronounced as I've seen on other Les Paul, style specials. And this upper horn looks like it's a hair taller and a little bit flatter on top. I'm assuming they make these changes so that they're not sued by Gibson. In fact, the headstock is one of the closer ones I've seen to a Gibson style, except it doesn't have the open book cut out at the very peak of the headstock. Let's go ahead and open up the cavity and see what's in there next. Alright, well that's not what I expected to see when I opened this up. Inside here, you've got two mini pots, which that's not totally surprising to me, but I really didn't think this switch was a mechanical style Gibson switch. All I mean when I say that, and I've got another wiring harness here as an example, is that it's got these isolating wafers in between all these pieces of metal, and when the switch operates, it's actually physically opening a very large metal contact on each side of the switch. So that's what I'm talking about. This has that. It just looks a little thinner metal maybe than some of the Epiphones I've seen, and the diameter is not quite the same on the other side. But they made a good attempt. I do find it strange that the cavity itself is not painted, and the jack itself is one of those very, very cheap Chinese style jacks. So I may actually do a little bit of an upgrade on this before I wrap it up. I may put this Les Paul special style harness in it and use that instead. I'm going to try to take the neck off of this thing next. The neck is set at a slight angle, which is actually good. You know, for a bolt-on neck guitar, it's not something I would necessarily expect to see, but it's set at a slight angle just like a set neck Gibson would be, which is needed to correct for the height of the bridge. So let me detune this and we'll go ahead and take the neck off and the tailpiece all off in one piece. So here's the neck joint. With the neck out of the way, you can tell this is definitely a solid wood body. It appears to be some sort of mahogany variant. It's not quite as dark as some of the mahoganies I've seen, but there are definitely two pieces here, one darker than the other. The neck joint itself, or the neck heel on the neck, is very square to the point where it looks like they had to cut the body all the way through. So this neck route and this pickup route are all one route. You can see the actual pickup in there from this cavity. There's a little bit of a paint mistake right there. There's a spot where they didn't clean the black off of the binding before they finished everything up with clear, and there's a shim in the pocket, obviously, and I think that shim is a lot of where it gets its neck angle from. Let's take one of the pickups out and see what kind of pickups they are. Well, there's nothing revolutionary about this pickup. It's basically a PAF or maybe a Seymour Duncan style knockoff. The interesting thing about it is that the adjustable pole pieces don't even go all the way through the base plate. Usually, you know, I'm used to seeing them sticking out. Other than that, I can tell it's wax potted. It's got a lot of wax on the bottom of it. And, I mean, the materials don't look crazy bad, but then again, I haven't taken it apart. There is a marking on here. That marking appears to just say J. One last measurement on the neck pickup. We look like we have about 8.77K, 8.8K. And on the bridge pickup, the resistance is 10K. The tailpiece does have some branding. It says SAR on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and flip this one around because it was installed with the screws facing the tailpiece, and I prefer to have them with the screws facing the nut. Well, the neck is back installed. It's just a matter of putting the bolts back in. This tailpiece didn't fit very well. I don't know if the bridge spacing is a little wide or the hole spacing is a little wide, rather. It did eventually go back on. I know I'm going to have to change the intonation since I flipped this bridge. I think I'm going to actually go ahead and replace these pots and switch with the Epiphone parts. That'll be a good start toward a free upgrade. Before I flip this thing back over, I did want to say one thing about the neck itself. The fretboard is, well, actually I don't know what kind of wood it is, to be honest. It's been dyed black so that it's supposed to look like ebony, but it's definitely not ebony. There's a few gouges in it. It seems like it's some kind of fairly soft wood. The gouges are definitely from the factory because they have plenty of dye in them. The neck itself, like the frets, go over the edge of the binding, which is something you would expect to see on a entry-level instrument. And they're not super sharp, but you can tell that they're there. To change the pots, I've got to get the knobs off. I don't know if I've showed this trick before, but here's an easy way to get knobs off without scratching paint on a Gibson style guitar. And basically what you do is just take a string and get it up under the knob, get a good hold on it, and pull, and the knobs pop right off. Okay, so real quick, I just did a quick little upgrade in here. I just swapped out that 2005 Epiphone Special harness that I got from my Epiphone teardown video that I did recently. And the pot values are the same, they're just full-size pots. The switch is a little bit better switch. The jack is definitely a better jack. And I went ahead and upgraded the capacitor to a polyester film cap. So, little view what I did in there. Also went ahead and got some shielding tape and just used it as the grounds between the different components inside. Did not run separate ground wires or anything. I just simply did that, and I've already plugged it in and it's dead quiet, so I'm real happy with it. The knobs fit and everything's been working. Let's see, next I think I'm going to mess with intonation on the bridge here. Okay, well, full disclosure, I did adjust the action on this a little bit before I started this intonation bit. It really is just a matter of getting a graduated ruler that has a 64th gauge on it. At least I use 64ths. You could use another scale. I used 5 64ths on the bass side and 3 64ths on the treble side at the 12th fret, and I set my action accordingly. So now my action's close and I'm ready to work on intonation. Basically, grab a tuner, plug the guitar in, tune the harmonic to pitch, make sure you're on the money on that, and then compare it with the 12th fretted note. And you'll see that one's a little bit flat. When things are flat, it means your string's too long, and I need to, because of the direction that I've installed this bridge, I need to tighten the saddle screw and move that saddle towards the nut. Then I need to retune. That's still pretty close. And check the intonation, and now it's spot on. That's the process. You'll do that over and over again on every string. Compare the harmonic at the 12th fret to the fretted note at the 12th fret and go on down the line. So where does this thing belong in the rankings of cheap guitars? I would say this thing lands right around the base level Epiphone Special 2. It's probably got a little bit inferior electronics, to be honest. So I would say maybe slightly below there, but it does have a little bit nicer fit and finish around the neck and the binding and whatnot. So there are some bonuses that sort of make that almost a draw. It's definitely not on par with that Slash Epiphone Special 2 that I reviewed, and it's also head and shoulders way above the glary Les Paul Jr. style guitar that I reviewed. But you know, it's a good entry-level instrument, and I think for the price, this thing lands, I think they're new, somewhere around 140 bucks or maybe 125, something like that. They're in there somewhere, and it lands just a little bit below where an Epiphone might be. So the trade-offs with an Epiphone, this thing might actually be worth it for you. And it's not a bad guitar by any stretch. I think it would benefit from electronics upgrades like I did, and it might benefit from a pickup upgrade, and definitely upgrade the tuners if you're gonna, take this thing seriously. All in all, pretty nice little package. I appreciate you following my videos. Be sure to like and make a comment if you feel so inclined, and also be sure that you subscribe so that you can see more of these videos, especially if you like them. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys later.